Well, it seems like the regular week is actually starting today. So even though it feels like a Monday, it's actually Tuesday. So we've got a short week ahead of us. Or at least ways those of you that had off yesterday. I had to work yesterday, so it's the same old week to me. Well, Kim Davis has been released from jail. Kim Davis was the Kentucky clerk that was thrown in jail because she obeyed the law. That's essentially what it boils down to. I mean, she was obeying the law, and a judge got mad about that and told her, you need to quit obeying the law. Well, she was like, but I need to obey the law. So he threw her in jail for contempt of court because she was obeying the law. And the really ironic part about this whole thing, there's so many ironies involved in this, but the most ironic part of this whole thing, which you really have to kind of dig down to find, is that Kim Davis, the lady standing up for not giving a marriage license to two gay individuals, is a Democrat, and the judge that threw her in jail for not doing it is a Republican. Oh man, I mean, that's just too rich. That is just something else. Yeah. I mean, the thing you got to think about on all of this is there is no law which forces Davis to do her job. She's an elected official. She could literally sit home, put her feet up, and not do a thing, and there's really nothing anybody can do about it except maybe recall her or just wait till the next election and elect somebody else. She's an elected official. But no, she was actually doing her job as outlined in the Kentucky state laws. I mean, this judge was wanting to say, well, the Supreme Court. Well, the fact of it is that the Supreme Court ruling said that the 14th Amendment applies to same-sex couples, which a really good argument could be made that it doesn't. Then they declared that state laws defining marriage as between a man and a woman are unconstitutional, in clear violation of the 10th Amendment, talking about states' rights. The thing to remember is that the Supreme Court, and indeed this judge, do not make law. That's a legislative function, and they're in the judicial branch. That's basic civics, folks. Even Mike Huckabee, in a speech about this, said that Kim Davis is asking the perfect question. Under what law am I authorized to issue homosexual couples a marriage license? And that simple question is giving many in Congress a civics lesson that they apparently never got in school. The Supreme Court cannot and did not make a law. They only made a ruling on a law. Congress makes the law, whether it's a state Congress or whether it's a national Congress. And Congress, neither one of which have made a law allowing for same-sex marriage. And she does not have the authority to issue a license to homosexual couples. Because in the Kentucky Constitution, it specifically states that marriage licenses can only be permissible or extended to couples consisting of one man and one woman. A marriage between two people of the same sex is not valid or recognized. So here she was in the position of she would actually be breaking the law and violating the Constitution of the state of Kentucky if she followed the judge's order, and could have been arrested. Whereas what he said was merely expounding upon other judges' feelings, their ideas. Because what they did, what the Supreme Court did, was first off, just interpreting, not redoing a law. And we're not even going to go into whether what they did was correct in the first place because of several members of the court's refusal to recuse themselves, which totally negates their whole judicial stance anyway. What they did was illegal by their own rules. You've got that. See, that's where part of this irony comes in again. There are so many layers upon layers of irony in this whole situation that it's remarkable. It's way past time for Americans to wake up and realize that our constitutional rights are under attack. We have the Supreme Court addressing the marriage issue when marriage is not even addressed at all in the Constitution. We have Christians being fired, fined, threatened, and now imprisoned for their religious beliefs. And we have political leaders, including political leaders right here in the Tennessee Valley, who are not doing a thing about it. There were several politicians that stood up and called this for what it was, a travesty of justice. But not a single one of ours did it. Oh, well, she might have been in Kentucky, but you know what? People like Corker, Alexander, and Fleischman, they represent Tennessee first, but America second. And when something of this important aspect concerns all of America, why aren't they speaking up? I haven't heard a single word out of any of them on this. I mean, Planned Parenthood violates federal law. Nobody's arrested. Sanctuary cities ignore federal law. Way worse than what this lady did, and people have died because of it. Nobody is arrested. The Department of Justice under Eric Holder runs guns to Mexican drug cartels and results in several deaths. No one's been arrested. The IRS illegally targets conservatives for audits. Again, nobody is arrested. Hillary Clinton, oh my God. Hillary Clinton has violated federal law for classified information. And not only does she have the audacity of running for president, she said on Twitter the other day, marriage equality is the law of the land. Officials should be held to their duty to uphold the law. End of story. Law of the land. This lady wouldn't know the law of the land if somebody dropped a book of them on her head. And that's the end of that story. When are people going to start standing up? When are they going to start demanding accountability of all of our elected officials? Speaking of accountability, we've had a number of different individuals in the news, from Louis Farrakhan to the Black Lives Matter group, all publicly calling for people to murder whites at random and cops in particular. And that has been done in several instances. Not just police officers, but, a number of different innocent citizens have been brutally assaulted and outright killed. In fact, the Boston police, when Obama went there, they physically turned their backs on him. And, he was not impressed at all with that at all. But, because, from Obama down, a war on law enforcement has been called for. And the FBI has refused to do anything about stopping domestic terrorists within the Black Lives Matter group or Louis Farrakhan, who have publicly called for open season on crackers and cops. In fact, a national movement called OP Dethrone, Operation Dethrone, has just launched an effort to stop this group before any more innocent people lose their lives. Like I said, over the past few weeks, police officers and white people across the nation have been randomly targeted and brutally executed in a number of instances. This group is now planning another act of terror in the coming days on, of all days, 9/11. Details about this event are still shrouded in mystery, but enough has come out that they know that this group is planning something on 9/11. They are directing their followers to bring guns and to convene at Stone Mountain, Georgia, where they proclaim that things are about to go down. And although the FBI has been alerted, it appears that nothing has been done to stop this terrorism. Meanwhile, Black Lives Matter continues to gain momentum and supporters. You know, they'd had a group of the NAACP that about a month ago was calling for Stone Mountain to be sandblasted clean. You know, back when they were talking about the Confederate flag controversy. These people, they're intent on trying to erase history by whatever means necessary. Right here in Chattanooga, over off of Alton Park, there are signs up on a building that used to be a political headquarters for the Democrats there in Alton Park, and it now has signs up saying justice or else. And this isn't graffiti scrawled on the side of the building. These are professionally made signs. Justice or else. Well, of course, the or else is justice or else we're going to start killing people, which is what Louis Farrakhan and the Black Lives Matter groups have been calling for. Are we going to have more shootings similar to what we had over off of Amnicola? Are we going to have race wars starting up right here in Chattanooga? What's our police department? What's our sheriff's departments doing about this? Because we obviously can't depend on the federal government to do anything. Well, anyway, something a little ironic. The Mexican government, in a move that can only be described as a great big screw you to the United States, has announced that they will start charging Americans who cross their border a fee of a minimum of $20 up to $28 under the guise of tracking immigrants and visitors to Mexico. Well, we know that for a long time that they've been holding up and taking advantage of a lot of the people coming from the south north, coming from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. You know, it's not at all unusual for those people to be held up at gunpoint by Mexican officials. And we're not talking about just, you know, here's a fee. No, they're taking everything they've got and sometimes raping them and even killing them. The horror stories some of these immigrants have talked about coming through Mexico are horrendous. Do you ever hear about that on mainstream? No, we got to let them through. We got to let them have every single thing here in America that citizens should be getting. Not always getting, but should be getting. You know, like the VA, you know, who's supposed to be giving medical treatment to veterans, people who've been wounded, sometimes badly wounded, defending this country. But yet, if you can make it through Mexico and into the United States, why, you get a Medicaid card, you get instant access to full medical benefits, while our poor VA has people literally dying while waiting to be seen. Yeah, Mexico is going to start charging us to go visit them. And, you know, the thing of it is when Americans go to Mexico, we're spending money down there. We're enhancing their economy, and they're going to charge us even more money. When Mexicans come to the United States, they're just looking for another teat to start suckling on and draining us of what they can send back home. And if you disagree with that, give me a call here at 800-8949, because I would love to talk to you about that. If you disagree with what I say about Mexican illegal immigrants coming to this nation, like I said, 800-8949. Because I've lived in Texas down by the border. I've been in construction most of my life. I know what these illegal immigrants do to us. I guess other groups have figured out, that maybe that's the direction they need to be taken. Just follow their example. Because Obamacare has just announced a new direction that they're going to be taking because it's so wonderful now. State after state has been having to close their Obamacare offices because nobody will get on it, because as soon as you get on it, you have to start paying more and more and more money. Obamacare was supposed to save everybody. You can keep your doctor. You can keep your plan. In fact, your plan will go down, all of which, promised by Obama, have been lies. In fact, I think they were lies from the get-go. It wasn't that they were hopeful. They knew what was going to happen. Well, now, the new thing that they're going to be doing is that, with all the emergence of all these transgender people, the Department of Health and Human Services has decided to add another regulation to Obamacare, which would require insurers to cover transgender procedures. Because never mind any sort of mental health problems these people might have, we'll just skip directly to physically altering somebody's body and make everybody else, me and you, subsidize it. You've seen several times where guys go into prison and decide they want to be a woman, and they start wanting the prison system to pay for the operation. In fact, there's been a few cases where guys have intentionally gotten themselves put into prison because that was the only way they thought they could get the operation. Well, apparently no longer, because now, under Obamacare, they can just go get it done. The new rule applies to every health insurer offering plans throughout healthcare.gov or any of the state-run Obamacare insurance exchanges. It declares that insurers are prohibited from engaging in discrimination not only on the basis of sex, but also on the basis of gender identity. Now, gender identity means that, you might have all the operating parts of a man, but you self-identify as a woman. Therefore, even though you've got all male parts and are all operational male parts, if you want to go into the women's bathroom, go right ahead. You want to go into the women's changing rooms at the gymnasiums in school or at the colleges or at the spas, go right ahead. Just as long as you say, I feel like I'm really a woman, everything else is cool. Well, in the past, health insurance plans had categorically excluded healthcare-related transitioning between genders, usually because such procedures are not only cosmetic, but they're not medically necessary. In fact, they're elective in nature and would be disallowed. We've got people out there who have life-endangering diseases and problems that we can't get the insurance companies to cover now. But then you turn right around and somebody that decides they want to start lopping parts of their body off just because, and they're allowed to do it. Oh, man. And of course, if this goes through, all that means is that premiums are going to go up even more, because you literally never know if you might want to switch your gender. Look at what was his name? The Caitlyn Jenner. Here he is, 60-something years old, and he just decides one day, hey, I'm going to be a woman now. Insurance companies can't discriminate against you for that. So now, basically, it's a pre-existing condition for everybody. Individuals must be treated consistent with their gender identity, including access to facilities, which means that all the hospitals will now have to have transgender bathrooms. Or maybe they can share a room with somebody else. How would you like for your mom to go into an operation and have Caitlyn Jenner sitting in the next bed with all of his parts still functioning. What happened to this country? I know exactly what happened to this country. It's called Obama. We'll be back after these commercial words.
Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
If you have the DT, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Yeah, you're starting to feel a little bit of a nip in the air. Fall is on its way. In fact, we're starting in the Sunday edition of the paper. They had a list of all of the festivals which are fixing to be coming up. You know, and it's always been so interesting living in this area about all of the different festivals going on, and of course, most of them are around some sort of historical site. You know, like Kettner's Mill or Prater's Mill, or various places like that. Where you not only get to go see a lot of different people and all these different crafts and things and some really interesting food, but you also get to see a little bit of history. That's one thing about this area. This area has so much history going on. It's just amazing. I mean, you go up on Missionary Ridge and you can literally see cannons that were used during the Civil War. You go down to the Chickamauga battlefield and you can see all sorts of relics down there from the Civil War. And it's just, this area just lives with its history in a way that I haven't really seen in too many other places in the entire United States. Well, one of the big areas of history is yet again coming to a head. For years, people have been trying to get the Moccasin Bend National Archaeological District up and running. It has been a battle royale for years and years and years. But as is the usual case, it seems as though our local officials just can't seem to get out of the way of forward progress. You know, they're talking about now, whereas we were talking about getting rid of the police firing range over on Moccasin Bend. They're wanting to upgrade the existing facilities. They see a need to spend $300,000 for a new building at the controversial site that everybody thought was going to the National Park Service. Yep, despite more than 15 years of political wrangling, federal legislation, and most importantly, grassroots efforts to build this park, you know, to showcase the history of over 12,000 years of human habitation. You know, you've got Civil War relics there. You've got the Trail of Tears going through the area. But instead, we've got a 33-acre firing range sitting in the middle of it. You know, just 2 years ago, we thought that a deal had been struck that would move the firing range. They were talking about a $4 million indoor shooting facility down on 12th Street, where the city decided that they were going to take an old rundown, abandoned area and convert it into a new city center. And they put a number of buildings down there, and one of those was supposed to be the new firing range. But it fell through. You know, if the ground had been broken back in 2013, that facility would actually be in use right now. But, you know, more studies have to be done. Oh, you know, there's money can always be spent somewhere else. Yeah, instead of building the new multi-million-dollar indoor shooting range, they ended up saying, well, we'll just upgrade the existing firing range, the one that sits right in the middle of Moccasin Bend. You know, and you had several different groups like the Friends of Moccasin Bend National Park who had raised money to help pay for the environmental cleanup needed for this area. Well, what good did that do when you can't get the city officials and the county officials to do anything about it? Even Hamilton County Sheriff Jim Hammond has called this a short-range solution, putting a new building on that old firing range. You know, I've been out to that firing range. I went through a Chattanooga City initiative called oh, man, total blank on that. Sometimes my old age really rears its ugly little head. The Citizens Police Academy. Yeah, the Citizens Police Academy. And they took a bunch of us out there, and we got to shoot weapons that are owned by the Chattanooga Police Department. You know, and they showed us different things, and they even blew up a car. And see, that's some of the things that people are saying, we don't really need this in the middle of a national park where people are blowing things up. You've got gunfire, not just one or two little shots, but a bunch of gunfire at times going off, especially on weekends, by the police department in the middle of what should be a quiet, scenic national park. How many national parks do you know of that have a gun range right in the middle of them? You know, and it might cost a little bit for them to move it, but they're going to have to build something new anyway, wherever they go. And this is not the spot for it. Area law enforcement personnel deserve a proper place where they can train correctly, but they'll never be able to build it on this site. I mean, it goes right down to the water. You know, and the thing of it is this area has so much history in it that it's kind of difficult to put things like parking lots, trails, boat ramps, without disturbing things that are historically significant, like Indian burial mounds, Civil War battlement areas. This is one of the few areas that would be able to accomplish that. But the city can't get out of the way. And, you know, they say that, well, they're not exactly sure who is stopping this, who's in charge of this. You know, I mean, Any talk of relocating the firing range and the bomb field seems to be steered by city and county officials in a different direction. Well, let's think about a couple of things. Okay, even if they can't build it over off of 12th Street, because let's be honest, 12th Street is getting to be more and more all the time to being a more valuable real estate area. Property prices are going up in that area. Do we really need a gun range in the middle of a revitalizing neighborhood? Where else could they go? Where else could they put a new gun range? Well, a couple of different thoughts on that. First off, maybe they could build one somewhere over off Amnicola Highway. When I drive down Amnicola Highway every day to come here to the radio station, I see lots and lots of areas that have for sale signs up. For sale, 100 acres. For sale, 150 acres. You see those signs in a lot of different places. Meanwhile, what do you have on Amnicola? Well, let's see. You have the police station itself, the main police station. You have the fire station's main headquarters over there. You have the 911 call center over there. You have the police evidence room over there. You have the police and fire training facility over there. Right now, when you've got a new crop of officers coming in who are being trained, being taught how to be officers, they go to classes over off Amnicola Highway, which means when they get ready to actually teach them how to use weapons, they have to get in their individual cars. I don't think they have a cadet bus like you see on some of these different movies. They get in their cars and they drive out to Moccasin Bend, to the police firing range, which is all outdoors. They have an indoor class area, but all of the firing lanes are outside, totally exposed to the weather. So if it's wintertime, you're out there in your jackets and everything, which it's probably not a bad idea for them to train wearing clothes like that, because that's more what they're going to be doing. But nonetheless, they are out in the elements when they're trying to learn. Well, if you were to build one over off of Amnicola, they wouldn't have to be driving as far, which first off would save expenses on the people going through the classes, but would also help with air pollution and things of that nature. Can you imagine 20, 30 cars driving over off of Moccasin Bend so that each guy can go over there to take his classes? And even after class, they still need, practice time. You got to do your homework. Well, you go out there and practice on the weekends. Police officers are required to practice. Even once they're full police officers, they're still supposed to practice from time to time to keep their skills up. I mean, they just had a case again in New York City where they had a shootout where officers shot over 80 rounds of ammunition, and the suspect was shot once in the leg. 80 rounds of ammunition, and they got him once in the leg. That means 79 rounds went somewhere else. We're just thankful that, no innocent bystanders got hit. But police officers are supposed to go out and learn and maintain their ability to shoot. Well, that means that the officers who work there at Amnicola, again, on their own time, have to drive out to Moccasin Bend. And there's only a certain number of lanes out there. What happens if you've got a bunch of officers out there, who all decide to go out there at once? Maybe everybody's having to take turns type thing, which, means they're out there for longer time periods. And then, of course, like I said, they're blowing things up. Well, there again, can you imagine camping out in a nice national park little area? Sun's coming up. The birds are tweeting. The little animals are scurrying through the underbrush. And all of a sudden, bam! There's the police department again, dear, right over there. Yeah, they could put up a much better facility over off of Amnicola. In fact, one of the things that we did when I went through the Citizens Police Academy was we had one of the active shooter scenarios where you go through a building and you're waiting for somebody to jump out. Do you shoot them? Do you not shoot them? Is that a bad guy or is that a good guy? You know, and the police need a facility like this. Well, right now the police don't really have a facility like that at all. What they've been using in years past was an empty building that was literally for sale over off of Riverside Drive. Well, they need a state-of-the-art facility, kind of like you see on these FBI shows, you know, where they go into a room and, you know, the little thing whips around and, whoop, this one's a little girl. Whoop, that one's a bad guy. Shoot the bad guy, not the little girl. For the active shooter scenarios. That's state-of-the-art. That's what is needed. Can they build that out on Moccasin Bend? No, not at all. Do you really want a big, huge building like that being built over off of 12th, where hopefully property values are going up and more businesses are going to be going in? I mean, they're revitalizing Main Street right now. They're trying to revitalize these other areas. Do we really want to put this sort of big land hog right in the middle of all of that? I don't think so. But over off Amnicola, you've got room for something like that. And even if we couldn't do it on Amnicola, maybe they could do it somewhere like the Volunteer Army Ammunition Plant site. There's plenty of room still out there because they don't need a building as big as Amazon or Volkswagen. They don't need anything near that big. There is plenty of room out there on property that's already contaminated, so they don't have to even worry about contamination. You know, that's one of the things they've been talking about over there in Moccasin Bend is the cleanup of all of the lead residue. Well, go out there. You don't have to be as concerned about that. And you've got plenty of room. In fact, there are some buildings out there right now that could be converted without a whole lot of trouble. They've got concrete buildings out there that have been sitting vacant for years because they were closed down from back when they used to do ammunition out there. They could go out there right now and start working on something like that. And yeah, it's not as close in as, you know, like being right there on Amnicola or even 12th Street, but it would be out in the middle of nowhere where the noise is not going to affect anybody. I mean, who's going to complain? Amazon? Volkswagen? I mean, you know, that would be a good place for them to be. And I think the cost out there would be minimal compared to going down off of 12th Street or maintaining an underrated facility at Moccasin Bend. But, you know, you got to wonder there again, why is there so little traction on this the last couple of years? You know, like I said, a couple of years ago, we thought we had something going forward on this. You know, when we had the riverboat sitting out there, and they were talking about how, oh, some people were saying that the riverboat did not deserve to be on the river. A riverboat on the river? We can't have that. Why, that's just not right. Well, the mayor and all of the mayor's people jumped up and down and did absolutely everything they could to drive that boat out of town and eventually succeeded. Where's the mayor on this issue? He's not proposing anything. Well, if he's not out there, you know, using the bully pulpit of the mayor's office to propose a new site, to propose a new facility, maybe he's working against it quietly under the table. Now, I don't know that that's true, but I just think it's kind of interesting, the timing of it. Before Mayor Burke came into office, everything was going ahead with moving the police firing range off of the park area. Mayor Burke came in, all of a sudden it comes to a dead stop. And we're getting absolutely no traction on it now. So you think maybe if Mayor Burke leaves office, you think maybe it'll start moving forward again? Maybe that's what we need to do. They put up this $300,000 building out there. Maybe they need to call it the Burke Armory or something like that, so that, he gets proper credit for being able to keep it all out there. Oh, man. All I know is the firing range needs to be moved for so many reasons. And there is really not one single good reason to keep it where it's at. The police need a better facility for so many reasons. Not only is it old and outdated, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it's indefensible. Let's look at what happened at the Army post in July. They even have a wire going around the Marine base over there. Abdulaziz had to ram his car through the gate to gain entrance over there. You know what the police firing range is surrounded by? Trees. All these different people calling for murdering cops. And if somebody was really industrious, that would be an area that would be super easy to infiltrate right over there. They need a good facility, city of Chattanooga, county of Hamilton County. This is a joint operation, so to speak, between the city and the county. And if they build a really good one, they could actually make money off of it in a number of ways to recoup some of the money they spend out on it. For one thing, if they do a really good facility, all the nearby cities like Cleveland, Dalton, Jasper, South Pittsburgh, maybe even bigger ones, would be sending their officers down here to utilize the facilities, at which point they would be paying some sort of fee. Yes, it would be free to our officers, both city and county, but anybody else would have to pay a fee. In fact, one thing that this area is desperately in need of is a good, high-quality firing range. We've got little small pistol ranges throughout town, but nowhere in this area do we have a really good, high-quality rifle range available to the general public. What you could do is maybe have the rifle range, like maybe have a 500 yard or 500-foot firing range for rifle sight ins, because when people are out there hunting deer, we want to make sure that they're shooting and hitting what they're shooting at. We don't want them just shooting rifles off and hitting something maybe a mile away that they shouldn't be hitting. We want anybody that's got a gun to be well trained, to be able to hit what they want to hit and not hit what they don't want to hit. So maybe during the week it's closed to the general public so that the officers can come use it. But maybe on the weekends, they could open it up to the general public. In fact, they could have officers there to help people improve their skills. That would benefit by having better public relations with the community. Right now, my main choice of being able to shoot my rifle is to drive out to Prentice Cooper, where there's nobody out there. It's not a bad facility, but there's nobody out there running the place. Back in Texas, we had firing ranges where you went out there. First off, you could buy ammo at the place. They had food available. You could buy Coca-Cola. You went out there, you were spending money. You were spending a lot of money in the long run between buying ammo and buying food and just having a good time being out with your friends when you all go out there to sight in right before hunting season or getting ready for a shooting contest of one type or another. In fact, they could even sponsor shooting contests, another way of making money. You've got groups like the SASS, Single Action Shooting Society, that would pay money to be able to use a facility like this. So this is a win-win if they were to build the proper facility, because not only could the police use it and improve their skills, but you could even rent some of the areas out to the general population or to other agencies. It's a money-making proposition. Why isn't our elected officials jumping up and down all over this? I mean, it's just amazing that right here in the middle of one of the best outdoor areas of the South, a city that's building its name on being outdoors, and right in the middle of one of our most historic outdoor areas, we have this antiquated range. And the city officials are literally standing in the way of doing anything about it, dragging their feet, while groups like Friends of Moccasin Bend are doing everything they can to help pay for it. The U.S. government has moved forward, but we can't get our own elected officials, both city and county, to move forward. It's truly amazing. That firing range, like the riverboat, needs to move on down the river and out of here. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Cowboy Up with Tex. Look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow.